What's going on? Welcome to the Urban Uncensored Sports Talk. I'm your man Charles. Usually you guys hear me and I talk a lot about the Baltimore Ravens, but this time I'm gonna go a different route and talk about my favorite college football team. That's right, Michigan Wolverines. Big win over Ohio State this past Saturday. It was an amazing game. Couldn't really enjoy it the way I wanted to because I was so tense during the game, very tense. Talking with a good friend of mine, um, I was just very nervous and very tense. It was a very intense game to watch. It was hard hitting. Both teams played very well. Ohio State gave their best efforts. Salute to them, even as a big time rival. It feels really great to come out on the winning end of these games because usually um, it just feels like we would have lost these games years ago. But Ohio State has gotten the better of us. They had pretty much gotten the better of us for the better part of 2 decades. But it seems like that has turned around now. For the Ohio State fans, it's kind of funny because Ohio State fans have been wondering, oh, when's this going to become a rivalry again? When's Michigan going to be good again? This rivalry's gotten pretty boring. Well, be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. And Michigan has become very good, since pretty much 2021. Michigan from 2015 up until 2019, they were starting to get their groove on a little bit, and just get back to what Michigan was before. Um, had to get some really good coaching, good quarterback play, and the sky's the limit for this team. And the last 3 years, as a Michigan fan, have been easily my favorite years. The fact that we are in the national title hunt, and we are on the verge of a third straight Big Ten championship. Without any further ado, let me get into this game a little bit. It's been a very stressful season for Michigan as far as the Jim Harbaugh allegations, the cheating scandal, you know the recruiting scandal which came at the beginning of the year, and this team playing without their coach, and that pretty much put a chip on this team's shoulder, and they've played with a chip on their shoulder. I think this Michigan team, ever since the Fiesta Bowl loss to TCU, this team has become a lot more. They've become a lot more motivated and a lot more hungry. Last year was a punch to the gut. It was a bitter pill to swallow, losing to TCU only by 6. It was a very frustrating game, very exciting, but also very frustrating because our defense just couldn't stop. TCU got a couple turnovers, but we just hell, it's kind of mind-boggling to even talk about. But let me get into this game. Ohio State came in. I knew what to expect from the likes of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Egbuka, whatever his name is. No disrespect, and Travion Montgomery, Travion Henderson. Excuse me, messed up his name. Um, the biggest question mark was going to be the quarterback, and Kyle McCord. Yeah, he had his moments. He played pretty solid. Not all that great, but he did some good things out there, and he showed his moxie. Start of the game he didn't really play well. He threw an interception to Will Johnson, which led to a Michigan touchdown. But he made some pretty nice throws throughout this game, and it helps to have a guy like Marvin Harrison be able to catch those passes. Michigan. Um, I could tell that Ohio State was very committed to stopping the run since they have gotten, gashed by Michigan the last 2 years, with the likes of Hassan Haskins, um, and Donovan Edwards really doing the most of the damage. Hassan Haskins scored 4 touchdowns in the game 2 years ago. Um, Donovan Edwards scored 2 long touchdowns and gained over 200 yards in last year's game. Um, they were very committed to stopping the run, and pretty much they did overall a nice job. Um, Neither Corum or Edwards got 100 yards, but as a team collectively, this team had over 100 yards rushing. Blake Corum had 22 carries for 88 yards. Donovan Edwards had 10 carries for 31 yards, and I think Ohio State did a great job of keying in on Edwards to let him know, hey, you're not going to do what you did last year, and much credit to them. And J.J. McCarthy had 4 carries for about 17 yards. So it was a great way for Ohio State to say, hey, you're not going to do what you've been doing the last 2 years. Ohio State, they've shown that they can be physical, because the last 2 years they just got gashed, and Michigan just ran all over them. But much credit to them. Let me get to the Michigan side. J.J. McCarthy played a very good game, very solid, had some really good throws. Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson, Colston Loveland, all those guys played very well. Our defense played pretty solid, even though they let a few big plays go here and there. But overall, they did a very solid job, forcing 2 turnovers, and didn't really get to McCord a lot. They had, given him a little bit of pressure, but didn't really get to him like that up until the last possession of the game. This game overall was great. It pretty much, depending on who you ask, it was the best game of the day. I mean, both fan bases are into it. The media is going to be all over Ohio State, Michigan. It's arguably, depending on who you ask, is the best rivalry in all of college football. And this game, I'll reiterate it again. Based on the magnitude of the game, I couldn't really enjoy it the way I wanted, just sitting back and just saying, both teams are playing pretty well. As a fan, I was really into it because, the game was tense and it made me nervous, and my heart was racing, and I'm screaming after every big Michigan play, whether offense or defense. Pretty much happened to lose my voice afterwards, and it was a very fun game to watch. You know, prayers out to Zach Zinter, who had the injury. Nearly towards the end of the third quarter, he went down, and he's not going to be with us. The rest of this year, the rest of this way. So, best wishes go out to Zach. Shout out to Blake Corum, who, after he scored his touchdown in the third quarter on a 22-yarder, he was able to, with his fingers, shout out to Zach, while Zach was, on his way to the hospital. Blake Corum had a very good game. As I said, 22 carries, 88 yards. Didn't have a traditional Blake Corum game, because usually Blake Corum, always gets 100 yards rushing, and he'll always break out a long run. But, like I said, credit to Ohio State's defense. As much as an impact that Marvin Harrison Jr. had, he only had 5 catches, but they were meaningful. They were meaningful catches, and Will Johnson, who got the interception by jumping a route in the first quarter on Marvin Harrison Jr., did a very solid job in this game. This game in general was it was a nail biter. And on the very last drive, well, pretty much on the last drive for Michigan, I was hoping they would at least get a touchdown to pretty much end the game. They got past the 30-yard line, and I'm thinking, okay, if they can continue to get first downs and try to, end Ohio State right now, this game be completely over. And, I'd rather have my opponent be down, pretty much double digits, instead of them having another chance being down, where they just need a touchdown to win. We were able to get through that. Thank goodness we have a really good kicker. He was able to give us a 6-point lead. We were trying to milk clock, but they, Ohio State was, taking timeouts amidst of Michigan's drive, which left them only 65 seconds left to even do something. I was very nervous the last possession for Ohio State, because it's just like, oh God, in your heart is pretty much in your throat at this point. On that play where Harrell gets to McCord, bothers him a little bit, gives him some pressure, and hits him as he releases the ball, and Rod Moore is able to catch, get an interception to pretty much seal the game. Rod Moore, who grew up not too far from Columbus, an Ohio kid, breaking hearts all along the state of Ohio, and it was very nice to see. It's pretty cool to see a kid from Ohio break Ohio State's, break their spirits a little bit, a la Charles Woodson. But with that being said, we are the Big Ten East champions, third year in a row where we've beaten Ohio State. We are going back to Indianapolis, which has pretty much become a second home for the Michigan Wolverines, and to face the Iowa Hawkeyes, who have a very, very tough defense. But offensively, Kirk Ferentz and offense it's like oil and water. It doesn't mix. The way I look at it, I think this may be a tough game, but I think Michigan can win it handily. Not easily, but handily. Just based on the fact that Iowa can't score worth a damn. Let's be honest. They just can't score. Also, what I've learned from this is Ohio State fans can be very salty. I mean, Ohio State fans, they're probably one of the most sensitive fan bases, not only in college football, but all of sports. Ohio State fans are very delusional, and they can be very full of excuses after a game like this. And there was an Ohio State fan who told me the other day where they were saying, Michigan beat Ohio State, but Michigan's not that good. Well, if you lost to a team that's not that good, what does that say about you? Hey, you got to be objective. Like, hey, if Michigan happens to, win or lose, I'll be objective. I can be critical and I can be positive. You gotta be able to play it both ways if you're going to talk about your team. I had a best friend of mine who lives down in Florida. He was at an airport and he, wow, this is kind of funny. He was at an airport and he said he tried to shake a Ohio State fan's hand after the game, saying good game, and the Ohio State fan pretty much, brushed him off and really turned his back to him and put his earphones in. And kind of pretty much left my buddy hanging. But that just shows how fragile the Ohio State fans can be. Ohio State fans can be very obnoxious, even though they are, very passionate, and I can respect that. But if you're just coming up with excuses and, always trying to discredit why your team lost and trying to discredit the team that beat you, I mean, as a fan, I understand fandom is pretty important to you, but you gotta be objective. You gotta be real. You just can't sugarcoat anything and just try to, brush things to the side. But Ohio State, not my team, not my problem. I'm ready to see this Michigan team, finish the job. 2 years ago, they went up against the better team in Georgia, the eventual national champs, and just got killed. Last year, if they had played Georgia, and if they had Blake Corum, more than likely that game is a whole lot closer rather than, Georgia playing TCU and being one of the biggest, national championship blowouts ever. But, that's just my opinion. I believe we can make a run at this, make a run at a national championship. We got all the ingredients, offense, defense. Jim Harbaugh has not really been coaching the team Not really all year due to the allegations and the scandal, which I think is just it's bullshit. If you really ask me, it's real bullshit. It's really one of the first times. This is pretty much the first time I actually get to speak about Michigan football, and it's just I think we are pretty much the second best team behind, the Georgia Bulldogs, depending on who you ask. That's just me being a fan and being real. I still think Georgia is the top dog, being back-to-back national champions. And if we happen to meet up with them in the national championship game, I really do like our chances. Much respect to Georgia, but I think they can be knocked off this year by us. But hey, that's just me. With that being said, let's win this Big Ten championship. Let's beat Iowa, and let's go on from there. Go Blue.